EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. That's John McMullen. I'm your host, Zander. Krause. Give us a follow on X at JF McMullen for Johnny Mac and at Real Zander. For me, got a great show planned for everybody today. A fun pre-show, little meeting there with Johnny Mac and I. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Well, you know, except for Nick Serianni making my life a living hell with his goofy behavior. But other than that, yeah, fine.
Yeah, good. This is what I want to do for everybody. I want to set the stage on the show today. We have plenty of time today. We have no guests coming up, so we'll have a full 2 hours to unpack the game, the actual game. Remember, guys,
What game?
There was a football game played on Sunday. If we forgot about that, so we'll talk about that, and then we'll briefly hit on this Nick Serianni stuff in the open. He came out and apologized. Obviously, the national media was destroying him all day yesterday. I've somewhat flipped. I've told John because I'm just so sick of talking about the stupid antics of the coach. I know he's emotional. I get it. So we'll talk about everything today. And then if we have any super chats, we will go to them and have a chance to talk to you guys, get your opinions on Nick, the game, whatever it is on your guys' mind. So we'll do that. Appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you guys hit that like button this morning. We have been slacking on the likes on Birds 365. So let's try and pick them back up. Appreciate all of you guys being here. We'll start with the news of the day. Yesterday, Nick came out and spoke again, John, and he apologized to the city of Philadelphia for letting his emotions get the better of him. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, boy, I don't even know where to start other than, you know, this Reddit thing going around with the fans trying to explain the situation. Hey, what the hell are you apologizing for that for? If that's the way it unfolded, what the hell are you apologizing for? Well, the answer is obviously he was told to apologize. And he claimed he hadn't met with Jeffrey Lurie. Well, he did meet with Jeffrey Lurie after the game because Jeffrey Lurie was there. So it didn't matter what day it happened. And, you know, maybe he was ordered to apologize, whatever. He looked like a prisoner of war on Zoom. And it's all self-inflicted. You know, nobody's talking about the game. All people are talking about is behavior. And then it goes to the point of, you know, this guy's a clown. I saw Adam Shine from Sirius. This guy's a clown. This guy's a clown. You know, and then I turn back the other way and I'm like, what is, I mean, if you want me to turn off your show quicker than anything else, you go low hanging fruit routes, you know, Mount Rushmore. I love Mount Rushmores of people who only know about 10 years of the given sport they're talking about. That'll make me turn off quickly. And then immediately go into clown. That'll make me turn off quickly. Which is it? The guy's 37-19, 661 winning percentage, greatest winning percentage in Eagles history. He's made the playoffs 3 times, made the Super Bowl. If you watch last night's game, yeah, it ain't that easy to have a team that doesn't look like it's coached by a guy who's been there for 2 days. If you start making changes, if you saw the New York Jets last night and there's 75,000 penalties. So I go on both sides. Like Nick does this stuff to himself, number one. And then you got people judging behavior like that has anything to do with coaching, number two. So I don't know who to be mad at. Just everybody doesn't want to talk about the actual game and only talk about this goofball personality. Just tone it down and act like a professional. It's pretty freaking easy. That's it. Point to the scoreboard. You want to taunt. Point to your record. You want to taunt. Do that. Don't taunt your own fans in this city. Even, by the way, that was the dumbest taunt of all time because Saquon Barkley had a 5-yard rush. And I'm assuming this guy's telling the truth. Saquon Barkley had a 5-yard rush. Oh, give it to Saquon Barkley. Averaged under 3 yards a carry. It was the worst game he played as an Eagle. He's missing pass protection. He's running out of bounds. with 3 timeouts, which set up the 3rd and 1. It's the worst game he played as an Eagle, and he dropped
Definitely
the other
worst
game.
Yep. Definitely his worst game as an Eagle. No doubt about that.
So, drink another beer and you shut up too. How about both of you shut up? I mean, but it all stems to Jeffrey Lurie. Either you want this or you don't. And you decided you wanted it. You didn't have the courage of your convictions because you didn't want to be overreactive. And this is what you get. So either live with it or don't live with it. But man, and this guy with I brought up that 3rd and 1 play. It's like in one of our commenters yesterday, I had not rewatched the game yet. That's the play he said he took over the play calling. Bullshit. Which I was trying to get. The quarterback audibled at the line of scrimmage. The running back whipped on the pass protection. Whiffed. And created that disastrous play. And that turned into the Myles Garrett block field goal. Like, why are you doing that? I was trying to get him to talk about that yesterday. I didn't work. It's like, dude, what you preach accountability. And you're like, I assumed he was trying to protect Kellen Moore. He wasn't trying to protect Kellen Moore. He's trying to protect Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. Now, that might be admirable to some people. It makes him look like a fool because the only time he says he takes over play calling is negative situations. So to the average man, they're like, well, this guy's a dummy. Every time he takes over, it's a disaster. It's like, what are you doing? This is common sense shit. And then you have all these narratives. So the whole Philadelphia Eagles ecosphere has been taken over by this goofball of a coach. And by the way, not a bad coach. By the way he acts, and by the way he goes about his job. And he said there's not a rule book. Yeah, there damn right isn't a rule book to be a head coach because all that shit would be on page 1. I mean, stop shooting yourself in the foot. Point to the damn scoreboard. Point to 37-19. Point to 3 consecutive playoff berths. Point to the NFC Championship. That's fine. Look at the rest of the league. So then I go off on these people are like, well, he's a terrible coach. He's a terrible coach. And the same people are like, coaching matters everything. Coaching. Which is it? Coaching's everything? Well, he's got a lot of talent. All right, then you don't want to blame the talent when you lose. Then it's the coaching. You watch these other games with 25 freaking penalties. It ain't that easy. It's frustrating. And nobody talks about the game. And granted, the game was not the prettiest thing ever, but, it was actually a good week for the Philadelphia Eagles from a pure football perspective because Washington lost and the Giants were a disaster and the Cowboys were even more of a disaster. And they at least got a win. So it was kind of positive from a football sense. You wouldn't know that.
Yeah, and I, to be honest with you, I know it wasn't a perfect game for the Eagles playing-wise, but I did think there was a few things there that you can build on. The turnover-free football, Jalen's looking better against the blitz. I think your defensive line is starting to show up in flashes. I thought Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell are maybe to look like 2 of your best defensive draft picks in a while since, Jalen Carter's there too, but I think there's some things to build on football-wise in that game, and all of them have been swept under the rug because Nick decided to chirp at a fan base that's been calling to fire him for 5 straight weeks. Like, can I just ask Philadelphia this? Because I got ripped on the afternoon show yesterday, John, because I came on, I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm done with this stupid take of Nick Serianni yelling at fans. I don't care. Are we really this soft? Like, we're going to call for a guy's job for 12 straight weeks all off season, and he does one thing back to us, and we're like, the whole hell is freezing over. I mean, look, I get it. The coach should be held to a different standard, and the professionalism of it can be questioned. I agree with that. But are we really crying about this like we are? I think it's a little bit obnoxious, John. If I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, fans can be obnoxious. That's part of the job. You got to deal with it, especially in this town.
Yeah, but isn't it unbecoming of a team of a fan base that says all we want is to win more Super Bowls and to be a winning franchise? I mean, we're crying about Nick chirping. That's not like that. That's not what a great organization would be worried about, or a great fan base.
Well, the fan base, you push back on me when I was ripping the fan base yesterday. I'm going to push back on you a little bit.
Yeah, good. It's fine.
I mean, look, yeah. I mean, they're assholes at times. They're completely uneducated at times, completely, which they hate to hear. And again, this is generalities. There's a bunch of really smart fans, but I'm talking overall. As we talk about, I just talked about coaching versus personnel versus coaching all the time. You want it one way when things are going well, another way it's all the coaches. That's uneducated. I mean, I don't know what other word to use. So there's all that stuff. The passion quickly, they had the 3 and out, understandable because they've been so bad starting, and the boos start right away. So you can't act like when in the post-game pressure, when the rare time Nick is telling the truth is like, yeah, when they're loud in a good way, it helps us. And when they're loud in a bad way, it doesn't help us, essentially what he said. Well, duh. I mean, if you're at a home game and you want to be that loyal fan base, I mean, you don't boo that quickly. I'll say that. Just put it as nicely as possible. But yeah, I mean, people know coming into Philadelphia. I mean, Andy Reid's one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. He got immense levels of shit in this town. Everybody's getting immense levels of shit in this town. Jason Kelsey did at one time, believe it or not. He thought he was going to get cut, believe it or not. Brandon Graham got it with both barrels early in his career as he plays his 200th career game. And you think, well, maybe somebody will learn from this. No, they're not going to learn from it.
McNabb caught heat like no
other.
other.
McNabb, best quarterback in franchise history.
Yep.
Certainly. Immense heat. I mean, that's just part of it. And, Andy dealt with it better. Everybody dealt with it better than this guy. So that's where I go over to pointing the finger at Nick Serianni. And he can point it back at me, but he just handles this stuff very, very poorly. Yeah. And he creates problems to himself. I always talk about one of the very few times I got to talk about Joe Torre. Now, there is a guy who you talk about immense expectations. He was expected to win every single year. And I mean win the whole thing every single year in his prime. And he talked about garnering the benefit of the doubt with media and with bands. And that's all you can do. It'd be a positive steward from that standpoint. You don't do what Nick Serianni does and open up windows to where every Tom, Dick, and Harry can call you a clown and criticize you. The clown, you saw a couple clowns last night, and as I said, just from a pure coaching ability, you could do a lot worse from Nick Serianni. But the job is way bigger than that.
Right.
And there's all these ancillary things you have to deal with as a head coach in this league. And he's not good at those.
Good shout to Joe Torre there. How many rings did he end up winning in his tenure? 4?
4 or 5, I think. Well, Joe got 1. I think 4. Yeah.
Legendary Yankees manager. I think they won last night, right? I didn't catch that game. My brother lives in New York City. He was at the game.
They did. Taylor Swift was there as well with Travis Kelce.
Oh
So,
God! Now
yeah,
Taylor Swift at the baseball
yeah,
game. Oh
exactly.
God! All right. Well, we'll move. We'll move. We'll move on. From that.
Travis is a big Cleveland.
Oh right. Yeah,
Not,
they grew up in
not
Cleveland.
Indians. What the hell do they call Guardians? Cleveland Guard. Yeah, Cleveland Guardians fan.
Yeah, right. They're not the Indians anymore. That's right. Good series there, John. Before we move on, I do want to talk about some football today, and we'll get to some supers. We got one. Abe, I saw yours come in. Don't worry, I'll get to that in a second. Do you think Serianni apologized because he was told to apologize?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, he was so downtrodden and beaten. Yeah, it was very similar to, he got taken into the principal's office and probably read the riot act.
John, you're
Yeah, I
there
mean,
for him this morning.
abso-freaking-lutely. And by the way, he shouldn't have apologized.
That's what I said. I hate. I'd rather you just stick to your guns.
If
But
that story was true, I would have said it wasn't a big deal. We were jawing back and forth. I was having some fun with him. Blah, blah, blah. That's it. How difficult is it to say that? Now, I don't know if that's true, that story.
Well, remember the perception. I mean, I said it yesterday. I flipped, John. I must have flipped through 10 channels yesterday trying to find a sports show that wasn't calling Nick Sirianni a clown. That was
I
my
know.
that was
By
my
the way,
objective for the day, and I
the
failed.
clown people, that's like the people in politics who call everybody Hitler. Like, Trump is Hitler, Biden is Hitler, everybody's Hitler, which is always hilarious to me because, if they were Hitler, you wouldn't be allowed to call them Hitler. Trust me.
Yeah, right.
The people are stupid. And then anybody who calls a sports person a clown, that's the version of it. It's like, you got the clown makeup on. Come up with something else, the low-hanging fruit. With Nick Serianni, it's about like if you program your GPS, it's going to get you to your destination wherever you go. No matter how many wrong turns you make, it's always going to take you to your predetermined destination. And there's so many people in this town and nationally who are at a predetermined destination with this guy, and he keeps giving them extra buyers, extra logs to throw on the buyers. But the offense is a perfect indication. I tell you about, he's taking play calling away from Vic. He's taking play calling. No, he's not. Jesus. Use your head, people. He's trying to protect him, which again is admirable to some. To me, when you preach accountability, it's not positive, but that's my own personal opinion. But from the standpoint of, let's use, it's not his offense. Oh, there's no motion. He's taking it away from Kellen Moore. Why does the offense look the same whether Nick is calling the plays from a not success standpoint, but from a thematic standpoint,
Right?
Or Shane Steichen's calling plays, or Brian John, and now Kellen Moore. You think maybe it's the quarterback and that's what he's comfortable with? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe they're building around what the quarterback's comfortable with instead of turning him into Brock Purdy and putting him under center.
Yeah. Did you see Kurt Warner put up something like that last night?
No, but yeah, well, Kurt's
he basically tweeted exactly what you just said.
So, well, he knows what he's talking about. He's a
I know.
quarterback. He understands, people build offenses around the strengths of the quarterback or that particular quarterback. And if you're building a traditional play action offense around Jalen Hurts, you're a bad football coach.
No, you're right. He will not succeed in that. So why would you do it? I mean,
that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
But if you have that GPS programmed, Nick Sirianni's a bad coach. It's going to get you there, despite the 37-19 record or whatever it is.
All right, we got a football game coming, an NFC East game coming up on Sunday. We have a game that just happened where the Philadelphia Eagles got a win. We're going to dive into all of those things here on Birds 365 today. We'll get to our super chats as well. John, can we put our final thoughts, our final touches here on this Nick Sirianni drama? I want you to not
I don't
only
think we're
analyze
putting
like
our
what he
final
did,
touches
because
on.
I don't want to just put like, I don't want to just talk about what he did, because I think you did say some things where it's like he shouldn't be doing this shit, or there's a way to do this, and he's created this clown show in a way.
Oh
But
yeah,
you're
it's his fault. Self-inflicted. Self-inflicted. So by no means am I, it's his fault. He doesn't have to do this shit. He can show a modicum of decorum. Take it behind the scenes. Um, you don't have to alert people. Like I can't believe how many people think he's taking over play calling from Vic Fangio and a bad thing happens. Nothing good ever happens when he takes over play calling. And people don't correlate. Hey, maybe he's trying to protect somebody else.
right.
I mean, why are you doing that shit? Just let it go. Which is essentially what I asked him yesterday. And people think I'm trying to defend him. I'm trying to point out, hey, dude, you're acting like an idiot. In a one way, I am trying to help him. I'm trying to,
Yeah.
alert him to this unforced error.
Alert him to his idiocy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. But the point that you're assuming that people will figure it out, guess what, dude? They ain't figuring it out. They think every time you do something, it's a disaster because you tell them that.
And
To
how would you like him
protect
to handle that differently?
simple. You don't bring it up unprompted. You say, we made a mistake. We're going to fix it. You go the Andy Reid route. You keep it as vague as humanly possible. Anybody who watches the play can see.
Well, just because, I mean, just from a broad perspective, John, I can understand why a coach would want to fall on the sword. You're right. He does go out of his way sometimes to like.
I'm not trying to say, oh, Jalen checked to an audible and Saquon whipped on a blitz. I'm not saying to say that. I'm saying, first of all, don't bring it up unprompted, which he did.
Right.
And then when you do, if you do get the ask the question, then you can fend it off and say, we didn't execute, you know. And you can say you can have a little bit of respect for the people and say, yeah, we shouldn't have ran out of bounds there. We had 3 timeouts, should have got the first down. You could say little stuff like that. And I think that would garner a little bit more respect amongst the fan base, but who knows? There's not a book, I'm told.
How do you think Jeffrey Lurie's feeling about this?
Not well. I think it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for him to survive this, other than, going on it, which, by the way, is possible because this is a bad division. And they might win. They might start winning a bunch of games, and I expect them to start winning a bunch of games. In the NFC North, starting this week, is going to start playing each other, and they're going to beat themselves up. And the Eagles do have significant talent on offense, at least amongst the starters. And they're not going to have Jordan Mailata for at least a few weeks, which would be the best case scenario. We'll see about Dallas Goedert. So that impacts things as well. But anybody who saw the New York Giants, I mean, you got to win that football game. Even the Cincinnati Bengals, you got to win that football game.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Doug might not even be there by that game.
I know. That's not looking good for Jacksonville.
That's an easy road right there, and you got to take advantage of it. And maybe then, if you end up at 6-2, people stop talking about this, but it's going to pop up again.
Oh, no doubt. It's definitely going to pop up again. Let's get to a couple super chats here before we get to a break. And then after the break, we're going to dive into some football. I do want to get John's takeaways from the football. All the talk I've done with John the last 2 days, I feel like I don't even know what his opinion on the game was or his takes on the actual football game that were played that ensued the 60 minutes prior to Nick Sirianni's outburst. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Birds 365 showing out strong, and Birds 365 listeners, appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button for me. We've been slacking a little bit on the like button, so hit that like button. Let's go to a couple supers. Abe says he disciplines Carter, but then won't do it for himself. I could see why that's a bad perception. You remember when he, stopped Jalen Carter from doing the chants in, I think was that New Orleans that he did that?
Well, you're trying to prevent a player. That's what he should do. Yeah, I mean, I
Right,
don't
but then
know.
don't turn around and do the same thing yourself.
Well, yeah, I agree. It was dumb, but you're trying to, obviously, with a player, you're trying to limit potential other, whether, fine, suspension, whatever, try to calm the situation. Yeah, with the head coach, you shouldn't have to do that, but
yeah,
evidently, sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah,
How big of a deal Don became a superstar nationally because, the Eagles couldn't control themselves on the sidelines during his suspension. Like, what is going on? What, that part of it is just utterly ridiculous. Like, why is Dom DeSandro? And I love the guy, and he's tremendous, phenomenal personality. That's why everybody loves him. Why is he a superstar? Because when he got suspended last year, the team went in the tank. It's so easy to stop, and he can't stop himself.
Goofy Nick. Dirty Air checks in. Dirty, appreciate it, brother. He says, Nick embodies who we are perceived as a fan base by the rest of the league. Rude, loud, obnoxious, and cocky. He can do better how he carries himself, but maybe we can do better as fans. Yeah, but Dirty, the only problem with that, and I don't disagree. I mean, I grew up in this city. I understand how we are. Nick is a professional as a head coach, right? You're supposed to be different than the fans, but I do see what you're saying, John. Your response to Dirty Air.
Yeah, he comes across like that at times, and that's why he gets the criticism he gets nationally. And I can't really push back about that. You don't have to be stuffy, and there's a wide range between being Tom Landry with the hat and the tie and all that versus being somebody that people tend to like and shows a little bit of emotion and gets fired up. But there's limits, and obviously he's crossed them far too many times. That's not the first time. That's the point. I think the biggest issue here is doing it to his own fans. I mean, in the past, he's taunting people in Indianapolis because, all right, Frank Reich got fired and he's fired up and he's mad. All right, you're not a child. Coaches get fired. Guess what? Nick's going to get fired. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Everybody's renting space. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
I brought it up yesterday. Bum Phillips, two kinds of coaches. Them that's hired, them that's fired. Everybody has a shelf life. Everybody.
Who's the longest right now? I think it's Tomlin, right? Tomlin's been around the longest, right, at the one spot.
Yeah, and they're constantly calling for him. And Pittsburgh, obviously.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah, they are.
The one, 3 coaches since 1968. I mean, how many rings does Bill have? Still out. You might have a long shelf life like Bill Belichick, but everybody's got a shelf life. And Nick's not going to last that long. I guarantee you that.
Yep, no doubt. Let's keep rolling through some supers. Got a lot of them this morning. Appreciate everybody. We got no guests today, so we'll have a full open show. We'll talk a lot about football today. We're going to get into that. Don't worry, and we'll take all your guys' viewers' comments as well today. Brian Fleming says, "Brian, you've been in rare form, Brian, in the chat. Brian was the. I'm not even going to mention it. He dropped the super last week, relating to the locker room. Brian says, "What up? What fired up fans on Serianni is he's trying to be a tough guy when he was hired as a puppet, then apologized like a beta, get back in the tuck chair."
Come on. You know. But I don't think he's trying to be a tough guy. I would say number one, other than the normal football mentality, where everybody's a certain amount of tough. But yeah, the apology came across as forced. I'm not going to call him a cuckold, but he's got a well-paying job, and your owner tells you to apologize. You better apologize. Yeah, I think you're going a little bit too far.
Yeah, come on, Brian. Brian checking in. Brian, you're in rare form. And Martine checks in. Good morning, Zander and John. Good morning, brother. Was Serianni hired to fix Wentz due to his Frank Reich connection? Saw that on another podcast being repeated. Never knew that. I mean, if you look at the timeline, he was brought in before Wentz was traded, but John would know more about this than me.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles, when they went through that process, they're basically all the interviews were, how could you fix Carson Wentz? They had planned to give it one more try with Carson Wentz. If that was their main goal at that particular time. And Carson actually steered it to like, I'm not coming back to this place. So yeah, originally everybody they interviewed was, a big part of the process was, hey, what's your plan for fixing Carson Wentz before things went off the rails? So, they weren't hiring him to fix Carson Wentz, but the plan was that they were going to try it one more time with Carson Wentz at the time.
Yeah, it didn't work out, obviously, that way. Carson wanted out, and off he went. James Carver checking in. James, appreciate it, brother. J-Mac, I get the logic of thinking accountability versus taking blame for others, but that also somewhat assumes the actions inside the locker room are same as publicly. But as BG and Landon said last night, he very much corrects privately, which I think is the much more important matter here.
Oh, yeah, I talk about it all the time. I mean, Jason Kelsey calls him the best accountability coach he's ever had. Privately, they put up numbers like when they're going over the film, Saquon's number is going to be up there back to back on those two particular plays, along with Jalen's on the audible. I'm talking about the public facing nature of this industry. You have to navigate that better. Like I said, don't bring it up unprompted, number one. And then you're going to get the question eventually, and then you can fend it off like every other coach fends off. Most coaches don't throw their players under the bus. Nobody's saying throw your players under the bus.
Right.
I'm saying don't say, especially in this environment where everybody thinks you're taking away from Kellen Moore and everything good is Kellen Moore, everything bad is Nick Serianni. Don't feed into that because it's creating this narrative that hurts the football team. And now you have the same thing with the defensive side and Vic Fangio. Like, why are you saying that? Vic. I mean, nobody believes that. Like, why are you up there saying that? Oh, and there's one time I took a play call away from Vic Fangio. Unprompted. That's just dumb, is what I'm saying. It's pretty dumb even if you get asked the question, although I don't know why that question would ever arise. So why are you bringing that up unprompted? It's just self-inflicted.
Good answer there, Johnny Mac. James, appreciate that super chat. Suo says, good morning, fellas. Good morning, Suo. Thanks for being here, my friend. Alexander Harris checks in. Why is scoring in the first quarter such a big deal? If they do and lose the game, did it matter? Why is everything such a big deal with Nick when the players love him? Isn't that all that matters? And John, before you answer, I said this yesterday, and I'll continue to believe this. Everything everybody says on the outside, whether it's me, whether it's FS1, ESPN, Filio, John McMullen, it doesn't anybody on YouTube, we don't matter. The dudes inside the locker room matter. Everything we say is a reaction or a report on what they do. If they're all bought into Nick, does it really matter? And I'll say this. It seems like they are all bought into Nick. Whether they are or not, I don't know. I'm not inside the locker room. I'm not boots on the ground like you are. You would know more than I would, and even, you might not fully know. They seem like they're bought into the head coach. Your response to Alexander and then what I just said.
Well, I always say there's 70 plus people when you count the practice squad, injured reserve, all that. No, anytime you have a group that large, not everybody's on board with everybody.
That's true.
Not the way it works. Yeah, for the most part, I mean, the players have you saw it after the game. I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson was really kind to Nick after the game. Brandon Graham, Jalen Hurts, which hasn't been the case, so he got talked to as well. Yeah, for the most part, the players don't have an issue. As far as why first quarter scoring, first drive, it's not sustainable. Nick has said it before he got defensive as well. That's why it's a big deal. It's not sustainable. If you fall behind in games, long term, you're not going to go where you want to go. So they know they have to fix it. He said it a million times. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored in the first quarter. It's not sustainable.
Right.
When they're look at their numbers in 2022 and their domination, getting leads is very important in this league. Now, as he correctly pointed out, the offense had a slow start. The defense did not against Cleveland, which is right, but that was not the question. The question was about the offense. He knows it. Everybody knows it. Jalen Hurts knows it. He talked about it because he understands it. Yeah, the reason why it's a big deal, it's not, you can't play that way long term and have consistent success.
Good response there. Alexander, thanks for the super chat. One more, and then we'll get to our commercial break. James Carver checks in again. BG addressed the Jalen Carter discipline aspect last night and said, people do not know players. They think they do. Everyone needs to protect Jalen Carter from himself because he can go places they don't want him to if he's not helped to stay there. It's a fair point. You might want to keep Jalen Carter on the rails more so than Nick.
I don't. But I think Jalen Carter, because of every interaction I've ever had with Jalen Carter is a positive one. He's very nice young man, very respectful. I would say I think he's a little bit immature. And that you have to obviously, as a lot of 23-year-olds or however old he is, I think of all the Eagles he has, because of what went on, I'm not trying to dismiss what happened at Georgia, but because of that, he's been labeled as this bad guy by a lot of people. Boy, I've met a lot of bad guys in the NFL. He's not one of them. Is he immature? Yeah, a little bit. But, I've seen a lot of players screaming on the field too. That to me is, sometimes having an edge is good. When you're on the field, as long as you can dial it back when you're off the field. But if I were making a list of players who, maybe have some bad traits, he wouldn't be on it. I think he made a mistake. He made a very big mistake. But that, good people make bad mistakes too. If I had to bet on somebody being a good person, I'd bet on Jalen Carter.
Good insight there from Johnny Mack on Jalen Carter. Appreciate all the super chats. Thanks everybody this morning. We're going to take a commercial break. When we get back, we're going to dive into the takeaways from the football game. I thought there were some things to build on that the Eagles did on Sunday in their 20-16 win over the Browns. They moved to 3-2 on the year. We'll talk some football when we get back here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. Hit that like button if you're in here watching the show. Appreciate all of JAKIB faithful showing out today. Been great all week. Hit that like button. We're lacking a little bit on Birds 365, so if we could pick those likes up, that'd be big. John, let's get into the football game that happened on Sunday. It's almost like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I have some, I thought there were some things to build on in the game. I understand everybody was looking for a blowout. I understand you squeak by the measly Browns. I get it. I get all the pushback, but I did think there was a couple positive things to take away from the game. What were some of your takeaways just broadly before we get into offense, defense, and some of the specifics? What were some of your broad takeaways from the football game that ensued on Sunday?
They won, yeah, so that's a positive in a week where nobody else won in the NFC East. So I think that's number one. And it was ugly, but there were some positives. Jalen Hurts not turning the football over. After the game, I'm a little more disappointed in Jalen Hurts on the second watch than the first because of the two audibles, and one worked and one didn't, but I think they're both bad decisions. And it's always about going for the big play, right? Instead of just taking what's there. So some of that still exists. Doesn't matter when it's good, but when it was bad, it mattered, and it kept Cleveland in the game, essentially. Now, a bunch of things had to happen. Myles Garrett had to block a field goal. Rodney had to return it. But you're never in that position if you just temper it back. And by the way, if Saquon didn't make the first mistake, Jalen Hurts didn't get the opportunity to make the second mistake. And if Saquon pass protects, maybe Jalen Hurts looks good. So bunch of other things, but I didn't like the decision to change the play at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, Jim
either
Schwartz,
time.
he brought the pressure there too, Jim, and
Yeah,
it worked
either
out.
time. And he saw the pressure coming, and again, it's still execution, because if you pick up the blitz, who knows what happens on the back end? We'll never know. But either way, I don't necessarily. I'm talking about the decision, not the result. The decision, because the result, and I'm proud. A bunch of fans, you said, I had one. You said, you know what? That's probably not the best decision. Going for the kill shot there,
Right.
which worked. So that never happened. So kudos to the fans there that brought that up, because it's probably not the best decision consistently in that situation. But the turnovers very good. Getting Grant Calcaterra involved, getting Jahan Dotson involved a little bit. Very good. Typically, whether it's AJ or Devontae or in this case Dallas goes down, it seems like Jalen gets hyper focused and doesn't trust the more of the role players, and he seemed to trust Grant Calcaterra. Now, he's known Grant since Oklahoma, so maybe that factors into it. But so I thought that was a positive. Defensively, a lot of positive, but how much can you trust it? Cooper DeJean, I think it starts with what took so long. Going to ask Vic that today. And we know what he's going to say, 20 days, blah, blah, blah. But you can see the talent. You can just see the juice he brought to the defense. That doesn't mean there's going to be, people are going to see him out there probably this week. And maybe the Giants are not equipped, but who knows if Malik Neighbors is back. And they're going to try to take advantage of him. And I'm sure there's going to be some issues in coverage. Pass rush showing a little bit. Trying to get Bryce up going. I think that's a positive. Overall, 10 quarterback hits, 5 sacks. Part of that is the opponent, but good to see some life there. And yeah, Mitchell continues to play well. So the draft, at least at the top, is looking very good.
Yep.
Early in the season. A lot of concerns with Nakobe Dean. He's not playing well. He is not playing well. And I don't like when the quarterback in my defense is not playing well. And that doesn't mean they should have went with Devin White. But it does mean they should think about, and I'm not saying right now, but, if things continue to go well with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Ben Van Sumeren behind the scenes, at some point, you may want to start thinking about them at least a little bit.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. We'll talk about some offense. Good breakdowns from both sides of the ball there. Let's talk a little offense, though, with Jalen Hurts. You mentioned a lot of what he did there. I thought it was a step in the right direction for him this game. Thought he read the defense well. I thought he stepped up in the pocket. He handled the blitz as well. He played turnover-free football, which was a very encouraging sign. Many people are still critical of Jalen, as they always will be, but I thought that was a step in the right direction. That type of play from Jalen Hurts is much more conducive to winning football games for the Eagles than obviously turnover football and what he was doing in the previous 4 weeks. So I thought it was positive from Jalen Hurts. I was excited with what I saw from him. Am I overreacting a little bit to Jalen's game or what?
Well, I'm not as high. I think he defaults to, way too much outside the numbers when it comes to blitz, way too much, essentially go routes. I don't think that's a finished product. I think, you know, it's a delicate balance they're trying because he wants this autonomy. And I think it would sometimes it would be better to maybe scale it back a little bit. Um, and I think that would be more helpful. But he wants it. There's ego involved. It's very difficult. I don't know how you necessarily fix it other than pointing out, hey, maybe, think about the situation. Um, when we're talking about that accountability, like I said, they're, number one and number 26 will be up there on those particular plays. Um, and those are mistakes, and that's what you have to point out, and hopefully it registers, and hopefully um, not so quick to go in that direction. But this team fell in love with the big play, the explosive play during the 2022 season because they had so much success with it. The same thing happened with Kansas City, and they had to go through the hiccups post Tyreek Hill about learning how to play a different way. I think the Eagles are going through those hiccups. I don't know if they're going to come out the other side like Kansas City did, but I think they're still trying to learn how to play a little bit differently.
We'll see. John, your thoughts on Saquon? You mentioned him a little bit. I thought for sure it was his worst game as an Eagle by really a long shot. Didn't run the ball particularly well, and then he also made some crucial decisions in pass coverage and pass blocking. That ultimately bit the Eagles in the ass. Your thoughts on Saquon in this game?
Yeah, I don't think he was terrible by any stretch, but yeah, it was his worst game, and that
wasn't a difference maker.
That sequence was bad. It was 1st and 10 from the Cleveland 40 with a minute left. And the first play was a 9-yard slant to AJ Brown. So you're sitting there 2nd and 1. You got 3 timeouts, and they throw a swing pass, and Saquon's got 4 or 5 yards gifted to him. And for some reason, he runs to the sideline like he needs to get out and stop the clock with 3 timeouts. And he doesn't even get to the yard to gain. And it's right in front of him. I mean, that's bad for a rookie.
Yeah.
That play. And then the next play, 3rd and 1. And again, all you have to do is push it. You can run it. You can do whatever. And you got timeouts to burn. Got plenty of time. And Jalen checks out and into an all vertical concept. And Saquon whips on the blitz by Owosu Koromoa. So that sequence was really bad. And that's the worst he's looked as an Eagle, compartmentalized. He got a bad grade from PF. He didn't have a good game, but it happens. He's not Superman, despite some people's assumptions. But yeah, certainly that was his worst game as an Eagle.
No doubt. AJ and Devontae were back. They obviously were a big impact on the game. Good to have those two guys out. But do you ever wonder, or do you have any fears that those two guys mask the deficiencies of the offense that could come back to bite you?
God, yeah. I mean, what? I mean,
sometimes I feel like Jalen.
Sometimes he just let's throw it to AJ. All right,
single coverage done.
Yeah, a lot.
I mean, you can get away with it when they're this good, but eventually that's going to bite you, no?
Yeah, I think, and that's why I think it was important to get Grant Calcaterra involved and Jahan Dotson at least a little bit. They got him a touch in the big touch in the passing game on the final drive, and it also what was really a swing pass, but it turned into a run because it was backward pass. But you know, and maybe that's what Jahan Dotson is. He's a very good athlete, not the best route runner in the world. So maybe you let him handle some of the college shit, and you get him involved that way with the bubble screens and the swing passes, and um, maybe that's how you get him involved. But yeah, the more people you get involved, obviously a better situation. And it's never a bad thing to throw it to AJ when he's got man coverage. But yeah, there's no doubt it becomes a crutch at times.
Last point here on the offense, John, is the injury. Jordan Mailata, I think that's huge. I don't know. I know we don't have any update probably fully yet on him, but Nick did kind of throw something out there. At least a couple of weeks he used. I don't think he meant couple as in two. I think he just meant,
No,
yeah. I mean, he's
I
going to
think
be,
it's going to be a multi-week injury.
yeah.
And it depends, if it is two, I think that changes your thinking than if it's 4 or 6 or something of that nature. I think if it's 4 or more, you got to seriously think about moving parts, which I know Jeff Stoutland doesn't want to do, but Mekhi Becton is obviously your best um, left tackle available if Jordan Mailata is not there. So, um, then it becomes: are you better with Brad Johnson, left tackle, Mekhi Becton at right guard, or Mekhi Becton at left tackle and Tyler Steen at right guard? That becomes your question. I would lean towards the latter and move Becton outside, but that'll be something. When we get out there on Wednesday, that'll be the first thing we're looking for. What their plans are there.
Yeah, I don't think Mailata will be back for maybe the whole month of October, probably into November. Hopefully, he can be back by Thanksgiving. I don't know. We'll see when Mailata is back. But that's a big miss, John. I mean, losing
Oh,
Jordan
he's playing
Mailata.
great. He's been
Yeah,
playing great.
I know.
I got to look
Jalen's
him
weak
up.
side. I mean,
I think he might be. I think PFF might have him graded as the best left tackle in football.
wow.
He's been playing at an all pro level. And that is a big loss. He's only fourth, so fourth overall. Teron Armstead, number 1, but he's played limited snaps, so I kind of throw him out. Trent Williams is number 1, the real number 1. It kind of always is. And then Penei Sewell's number 2, and he's number 3. Sewell probably, he's probably the best left tackle in football right now. And Trent Williams is obviously first ballot Hall of Famer. So it's not bad. It's not bad company.
Pretty damn good company. John, let's move into the defensive side of the ball. I thought they showed improvement this week. I know you played the Browns, and I know you played Deshaun Watson, but the defensive line showed up. I think the depth in the defensive line showed up a little bit with Jomo, Booker out there, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. You mentioned them in your opening there, and then they didn't allow a touchdown. So I thought overall the defense – I'm not saying we're going to the Super Bowl because they help the Browns, but I'm saying there is something you can build on there more so than coming out of the Bucs game getting thrashed by Baker Mayfield. There was something you could build on there with the defense. Your takeaways defensively.
Yeah, I don't know how much to take out of that game because Cleveland is so poor offensively, to be honest. But it's good to get confidence. And have some success. I think that always helps. But, and that, that's the thing with every deep. I think this defense you see, I mean, the positive is they're going to handle teams like this. And that's a positive. when you start getting to quarterbacks who, have a little bit better concept of what they're doing or what they're trying to accomplish, um, it's going to get more difficult. But that's the NFL in general. That's one of the things that always perplex me. Oh, but they're not good against Tom Brady in his prime. Well, yeah, that's the point. It's hard. And the good defenses make sure they really shut down the bad offenses. So I think from that standpoint, it was very positive because they didn't let them breathe for the most part. Little bit of issue on that one drive where they got in the red zone, but you're talking about one drive. Anytime in the modern NFL, you hold an NFL team to one red zone trip, that's pretty good. And you're not giving up explosive plays because the Eagles didn't get in the red zone as well, but at least they had some explosive plays.
The explosive play part, you might be able to chalk that up to the Browns offense.
Well, I mean, it's bad offense right now.
Yeah.
And the quarterback is terrible, and they're playing the third string running back, and he gets hurt, and they got to go to a fourth string running back, and their second string center gets hurt, and they're down to a third. They're bad.
I seriously don't understand the Deshaun Watson thing, John. Like, I get that there's a lot of shit off the field that must be weighing on him, but the dude's talent evaporated. It's gone. It's not. It doesn't even look like it exists in there anymore.
Yeah, he's not good. He had one throw where I said, "Oh, that's nice." A slant to
The quick slant route,
Yeah.
on 3rd and 11 or whatever it was. Yeah.
One throw where he looked like an NFL quarterback.
Even that was a little bit of a wobbler, but it was a good
Was
throw.
it?
It was. Yeah.
Looked good in person.
Wasn't a tight spiral, but that's not the only way to judge a good throw. I'm just saying it wasn't. If that's his only good throw,
It was a tight window throw. I said,
it was a
"Whoa,
very tight window."
Who's this guy?" And yeah, maybe that was just, sometimes when you play darts, you hit the bullseye by mistake. Yeah, he's not playing well, but it was good. I think anytime you get some competence, I think is a good thing. And, Jordan Davis played better in limited snaps, but that's what he's supposed to do. Moro Ajomo showed up. I think had a very good game as a complimentary player. I think Nolan played better. I think Bryce played better. I think Sweat has been the most underrated defensive player on the team so far. Carter's Carter. He's good. It's just a matter of how good in the week. Jakobi, terrible. Terrible. Boy. He's playing.
What's the solution there?
I don't know if there is a solution.
I don't know if look. I know Trotter's a rookie, and Ben Van Sumeren people don't think can play. I find it hard to believe they'd be worse in space.
I know Ben Van Sumeren would be better in space. I know that.
Okay, well maybe we'll get him out there then, because Nakobe Dean in space. What's further than what's the word that's the next level of a liability? That's what Nakobe Dean is.
He is right now, and I don't know if it's going to turn. Boy, let me look at his grades. He's under 40.
That one. There's one play that sticks in my head on Nakobe Dean in this game. I forget the play, and it was a 3rd down. It was pretty long. The running back, I think it was the running back, caught the ball in space near the line of scrimmage, and they're out there on an island, and he just runs right around him on the sideline and picks up the 1st down. And
it ain't good. When he's in space, it is not good.
No.
81 linebackers graded. Nakobe Dean is number 78.
Who were the 3 behind him?
Raekwon McMullen from New England, Earl Friend Kaiser White.
He's behind. I thought he was playing okay.
No,
clearly not.
He's been really bad in coverage, and the guy who beat out Devin White, KJ Britt, in Tampa Bay, which tells you about Devin. The 2 people that beat out. The 2 people that beat out Devin White are
the
78.
bottom 3 linebackers in the league. 2 of them beat out Devin White.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Uh,
Oh man. Poor Devin catching some strays this morning. Sorry, Devin. I didn't
sorry,
mean
Devin.
to.
Well,
Yeah.
great guy too. Jesus, I
Hey,
hate that.
I respect the way Devin handled his business here with the way it ended and getting beat out by N'Kobe Dean, who's not a very good linebacker. Maybe that's weighing on him, but I thought he handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the Kobe. Um, but yeah, I mean he's instinctive. When he's going straight ahead, he's fine. But when he's in space, it can get ugly, ugly.
No doubt. A couple super chats I want to get to. We'll get to another commercial break. We have about 53 minutes. Sorry, bad math this morning. 53 minutes left to go in the show today. Appreciate all the support in the chat. Hit that like button, everybody. We're lacking on Birds 365. Can we get to 150 likes during the live show today? That would be the goal. And I don't know if we'll reach it or not. Let me check where we are. I got Cooper DeJean on the thumbnail today, John, because I'm loving what I saw from Cooper out there.
Yeah. Yeah, as a punt returner too. I mean, he showed some juice. He's a really athletic guy. I think, because he's let's be honest, because he's a white defensive back. I think people don't understand how athletic he is. His athletic testing coming up to combine was off the charts, off the charts. And to get him out there, I think that's one where the Eagles waited too long. They knew where they wanted to go, and they were leaning on this 20-day absence in training camp like it was a catastrophe. I used to yell at fans who acted like it was a catastrophe. Evidently, the Eagles thought it was a catastrophe. Took them way too long to get him on the field, and I think you see right away what he can bring, especially as a blitzer, because Vic likes and forgot about the pass rush. Vic likes to run blitz from the slot to help out with run support.
Yeah,
and he's
it's
very
worth
good
it.
at it. Very
Yeah.
good at it. But yeah, I mean, his athletic testing was off the charts. And I always bring up Math Bomb, Kent Lee Platt, and has, basically measured prospects going, back to 1987 since they've been compiling these numbers. When it talks just about athleticism and measurables. So we're talking about height, weight, bench press, vertical leap, broad jump, 40-yard dash, 20-yard split, 10-yard split, all this stuff, and measuring it against prospects, not only from that year, not only from the year Cooper DeJean is coming out, but historically. So he ranked, this goes back to 1987, 2,469 cornerback prospects. From an athletic testing standpoint, measurables, guess what number Cooper DeJean was?
Top 10.
Well, you're going too far. 28
That's
out of
pretty good.
2,469. That's how athletic he is.
That's pretty incredible. That's pretty, and you're going to get it, John. You pointed it out. You're going to get it. Fleming, who's been in rare form, says I doubt him because he's a white corner.
There you have it.
Yeah, you're
28 out of 2,469, and to that, to Fleming, is it Brian? Brian Fleming?
Yeah.
What is it?
Brian. Yeah.
To Brian, go look up his basketball YouTube clip.
Yeah. Cooper DeJean he's a baller for sure. He's got that athletic trait, no doubt about it. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Let's roll through a couple more super chats. We got Brian Garner with a good one. Good to see Jalen throwing the Dotson and Dotson coming up with those catches. Maybe Jalen trust him more now. And I'll add one guy before I get John's reaction. Grant Calcaterra. Jalen
Yeah.
seems to be finding Calcaterra
I
more.
brought up Grant a
out
couple
there.
times. Yeah, they
Yeah.
played together at Oklahoma, so I
Yep.
think they have a bigger trust with Jahan. I mean, one was a swing pass, as I mentioned. The other was a big pass, though, near the sticks at the end
Yep.
of the game. So, and the swing pass ended up being a run because it was actually a lateral. But yeah, maybe that's what I said about Dotson. You know, maybe he can handle the college shit, as I like to call it, all the bullshit bubble screens and smoke screens, because he's not the best route runner in the world, but he's very athletic. So maybe get him involved with the manufactured touch stuff. That always looks so ugly for the Eagles for some reason. Maybe he can get involved that way, but he's got to get better as a route runner if he wants to be more consistent.
Good stuff there. Garner, appreciate the super chat. It is a good sign to see Jalen finding some of those guys and throwing the ball to them. Let's go to Carver. Carver, appreciate your support as always, man. The king of the JAKIB chat is James Carver, everybody. And if you think it's otherwise, you are sadly mistaken. Carver is the king of the JAKIB chat. James Carver says, did you see a big shift to pistol or under center regardless of Jalen's preferences with Goddard out? Because Grant missed many blocks and runs out of shotgun are extremely predictable, thus requiring at least some blocking ability. That would be Calcaterra's deficiency. John, your response there to James.
Yeah, he's not the best blocker in the world. You know, but there aren't a lot of great blockers. That's what I always say when people say, hey, Saquon's a good pass protector. Yeah, he is compared to his peers, not compared to guys who use it's kind of a lost art. And you saw it with Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa. I mean, he didn't look like a good pass protector there. So, you know, the adage is, you know, lose slowly. That's generally what people look for when it comes to running backs and pass protection, and it comes to tight ends blocking. Just lose slowly. And Dallas loses slowly. Saquon loses slowly, and that's what you want. And Grant doesn't, but that's why you have Jack Stoll. So a little bit from that standpoint, maybe become a little bit more predictable. But I got to tell people, Jalen Hurts isn't going under center a lot. And you should not be wishing for that. He's not comfortable with it. He's not good at it. Why do people want to make him into something he isn't? That's why Nick, Shane, Brian, Kellen, they're trying to build an offense around what Jalen is comfortable with and Jalen is good at. That's why it looks the same.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Let's keep rolling. Suo Blaze with the super. Appreciate it, Suo. The solution was to not get rid of Devin White. Suo. Johnny Mac's about to
Come
hit you
on.
with it. Stop it.
Come on, dude. By the way, has anybody else signed Devin? Have I missed it? He's out there. I mean, you got to give it up. You got to give it up. He was the 5th overall pick in the draft. He got a $3.5 million contract. He's out. He's available. There's 31 other teams that could have had him back in March and offered him $4 million. There's 31 other teams that can have him free and clear. They don't have to do anything. You got to give it up.
People wanted to see him, John. They're not gonna give it up because we never got a chance to even see with our own eyes that he sucked.
Does that not register at all? That
It does to me. I'm just saying. You told me. I've talked to you enough that I had no expectations for Devin White coming into the year. I mean, I've read comments all off season long ripping you for being the biggest Devin White hater in the world, and you're this and this and this, and you know it ultimately came out to be true that you were right.
People got to get right because now I defend the organization. I hate Devin White. It's ironic because I really like Devin White, and the organization's driving me crazy. Personally, I really like Devin White. Yeah, he's not a good football player. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I do think that's interesting. You said that Nakobe Dean beat out Devin White in practice, right?
Pretty clearly. As Vic would say, it will become obvious. It became obvious.
Yeah, got it. I think people think about the practice and say, how do you beat somebody out in practice? I mean, we were told all offseason that Jalen Hurts had the greatest practices in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles because he didn't throw an interception. And then he came out of the gate and led the league in turnovers for the first 4 weeks. So I think people are just like, yeah, well, what, the same practices? That's where Dean beat out Devin, and they don't put as much merit on it as they maybe should, or
yeah, well, it definitely should. I mean, look, nobody's saying, I mean, as evident as I cautioned people when I would say that Nakobe's going to win the job, I would say pretty consistently, I'm not comparing him to Fred Warner. I'm comparing him to what the Eagles have.
Fred Warner might be Defensive Player of the Year this year with Hutch out.
Oh, it should have been Aiden. Yeah. But
yeah, well, Aiden, I think Aiden was up to like 8 sacks already.
Yeah, he was going to win. I predicted it. That's why I was so invested. But unfortunately,
well, he's a great player. He is really a good player. I hope he heals up well. Obviously, they're an NFC foe, but still,
terrible injury. But
yeah, those ones are tough to watch for me.
Yeah, Fred Warner's unbelievable. And I would say that all the time. I'm not saying he's good. I'm saying he's the best the Eagles have. And Vic obviously felt the same way because it was obvious. And he was significantly better by the end of training camp. But yeah, that's how you decide things in the NFL. How they do in training camp. Does it matter? No, what you do on the field in regular season games, but you're not going to say, oh, let's see what they do in regular season games after watching them for a full summer. You make the best informed decision you can make. You're not going to give a guy an opportunity because he was the 5th pick in the draft 5 years ago. Give it up. I mean, it's not
we got
another.
I didn't see this. Suo did a double whammy, John, and I didn't even see it. I should have read it before you started going off on Devin White. White was clamping Saquon on wheel routes all off season. Played better than Dean in preseason. He's bigger, stronger, and faster than Dean. No effing chance. Dean
is this Devin? Is this Devin? By the way, I don't know Suo Blaze, but I didn't see it next to me, so I don't know how you know White was clamping Saquon on wheel routes. By the way, he was, so I'm not saying he wasn't, but I'm just laughing at the certainty these people have. When you talk about it if you watch Saquon Barkley in practice, you go, how's this guy going to open on a wheel route? Because everybody clamped on him. Zach Bond clamped on him. Devin White clamped on him. Obviously, wasn't going full bore. But anyway, besides that, look, I didn't make the decision. Vic Fangio made the decision. I just use Vic's quotes. It will become obvious. It became obvious to people who were there every day and people who paid attention every day. Not the first snap. By the end of training camp, again, they went through this. The whole philosophy was they did not want to hand the job to Nakobe Dean again after what went on the year prior. They didn't want to just anoint him the starter. They wanted him to earn the job. So everybody was focused on the first rep. By the time the last 10, 14 days of training camp, the totality of first team reps, Nakobe was getting more. So it was obvious for people paying attention that he was going to win the job. Again, did he beat out Fred Warner? No. The Eagles did what the Eagles did. They didn't ask me. They didn't dress him. They tried to trade him. They didn't want him. Don't blame me. Blame the Eagles.
Suo, appreciate it, brother. Alexander Harris, his member chat, says, you think the defensive line playing tighter in nickel will help the run defense instead of having the defensive end line up in New Jersey, New Jersey and Ohio?
Well, obviously, this scheme plays a lot of off-man coverage. Yeah, and it gets frustrating for fans. I get it. Do I think playing tighter in the nickel will help the run defense? No. Nickel's about run fits, and if basically your job is to be in the right gap in the right situation and bid it correctly. Look, if they get, if you have a pulling offensive tackle in space who locks onto a nickel, there's not a nickel in the world that's going to survive that, especially if it's Trent Williams or Panay Sewell or some of the people we were talking about. Ironically, Avante was always very good as a run fit player. That was one of his strengths as a slot player. And, sometimes you get beat up because he's not the biggest guy in the world. I don't think Cooper's at that level yet, but where Cooper can help, as I mentioned, Vic likes to blitz off the slot and run support at times to try to blow things up, try to disrupt timing of run plays. I think he helps there greatly. I think he's got a knack for it, and I think you'll see that as the season develops. I think he'll become a bigger force on those run blitzes, and you kind of saw it a little bit in the Minnesota preseason game when he was out there playing. He used it a few times in that game, and I remember talking to Zander about it on the post-game show we did. I because he wasn't great in coverage, but he did show up in that aspect, and I mentioned that, and that's a big part of a big thought process when it comes to slot players. So I think he'll help there, but it'll be a work in progress. He's never played. I think people don't realize he was an outside corner 90% of the time at Iowa, 90 plus. It was over 90%. So all of this is new to him. And that's part of the reason why the Eagles took so long getting to it. So he's still learning the nuances of the position.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Did you have an issue with the run fits in this game specifically versus the Browns? I mean, they didn't have Nick Chubb, and I think they still ran for over 100 yards.
Yeah, Pierre Strong.
It looked like those dudes could
ball to Pierre Strong.
Yeah, I mean, he was just running at will in some moments there.
Yeah, well, I'm going to let the people on a little secret. The Eagles linebackers are not good. They got one guy learning. I just said one guy learning the position, one guy playing poorly. So they make some mistakes. It's almost like if you don't allocate assets to a certain position, you might not be very good at a certain position. The Eagles don't value linebacker. And sometimes you can overcome it. Like if you develop an undrafted guy like TJ Edwards, which, people still say, no matter how good he plays, they still say he stinks because he was undrafted. And no matter how bad Devin White plays, he's still great because he was the number 5 overall pick. I can't help those people.
Give me TJ Edwards. Oh man, that would help this defense so much.
The people in Chicago think he's a monster.
Yeah, they're going to extend him, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, he's outplayed the guy they paid more. But
speaking of Chicago, looking like Ryan Poles has done a good job. You give a guy a little bit of time and let him start to work his magic over a few years. That team looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to give Ryan Poles credit. I mean, that's more of a Sam Hinkie. Yeah, that's more of a Sam Hinkie thing. Like you're bad for so long, and all of a sudden you wake up and you finally hit on a quarterback, or at least
he made some key moves, John. I think some of those key moves. I mean, fleeced the Panthers with that. Used all those picks to really build out the rest of the team. He's got weapons. I mean, I think he did a good job. I hear what you're saying. I mean, yeah, if you lose for 20 years straight.
What the freak did you do with Justin? They ruined Justin Fields. Then they,
Was that Poles, Justin Fields?
well, that he came in. I'm not sure.
I don't think he drafted him though,
No,
right?
he might have been after, but they
Yeah.
made the decision. Oh, we're going to keep Justin Fields when they could have had, could have made the CJ Stroud.
Well, they weren't sold on Bryce Young, and it turns out they might have been right about that.
Well, they should have, yeah, but they should have been sold on CJ Stroud. So which way do you look at it?
Well, they garnered not only the quarterback, but they also got a litany of assets with it.
But, all right, you had the number 1 pick back to back. All right, great. Hey, great, Ryan Poles.
John, you're a tough cookie to crack today, my friend.
Well, you shit on that fan base because I know the Chicago fan base well. You're awful, 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 awful. You got a defensive head coach. You make a bad decision. Everything that organization does, they haven't a quarterback since Sid Luckman. You give a little bit to Jim McMahon, obviously. But long-term successfully, that's why they're so excited by Caleb Williams. And by the way, let's wait till Caleb Williams gets the Brian Flores. Let's see how that looks.
Yeah, but he's still a rookie. I mean, he looks pretty good for a rookie, even if Brian Flores shuts him down.
I would have taken Jaden Daniels. I said it from day one. I'd still take
John,
Jaden
sticking
Daniels.
to his guns. I like Jaden Daniels too. I think Jaden Daniels is better, but it looks like both the quarterbacks.
I'm not giving and the Carter stuff. Like you're afraid of your shadow. Oh, we can't bring Jalen Carter in here. Did you even talk to the kid? I just talked about Jalen Carter. Yeah. Not a bad guy. You had a chance to take him
you
twice.
Can't leave out the context that you talked about in that moment. Howie Roseman has the leash to be able to make a move like that. When you're Ryan Poles, you probably don't.
No, that's how he thought of it. I said he's scared of his shadow. I mean, show the confidence. I can get this kid on the straight and narrow. He's by far the most talented. I don't have to take him a number
maybe he
one.
Makes that decision now with some confidence though, because they're winning football games. They weren't winning football games at that time.
Yeah, and they would have won more if they drafted him. No, I'm not giving Ryan Poles any credit other than Sam Hinkie level credit.
Well, I mean, with this logic, you could criticize Howie Roseman. You got A.J. Brown, but you missed on fucking 4 receivers to get to A.J. Brown. Where were all those assets? We would have been a better team.
Oh, by all means, let's compare Howie Roseman to Ryan fucking Poles. I credit. Yeah, I'll be all in for criticizing Howie Roseman, but don't even put those two guys in the same freaking sentence.
Oh man, John, you're very informative there. I love it, man. I love it. You're on demon time, John. You're taking nothing today.
But because I'm like, all right, yeah, they drafted freaking Darnell Wright. They had the number 1 pick in the draft, and they went down and they got Darnell Wright. Now everybody makes fun of Carolina because Carolina made the wrong decision. Now if Carolina gets CJ Stroud, who knows? I say all the time, everything's not a vacuum, and they gave up a bunch, and the Bears get a bunch of assets. Good luck with your assets. And they've done a good job. Sam Hinkie, all the credit in the world. You still end up, and you had a chance to get Jalen Carter twice, by the way. And you end up with Darnell Wright because you're scared of your own shadow. And it didn't even have to be Jalen Carter. It could have been Bijan Robinson. It could have been,
you would have killed them for drafting Bijan, John, as a team that's not built out, spending a first on a running back.
And Bijan hasn't been, he's okay.
He hasn't lived up to the
running back isn't, relevant. But you get my point. Come on. I'm not giving anybody credit for being bad over and over and over and over and over again. And all right, you got a talented kid at number 1 overall. And let's see in that division, especially because Detroit's going to beat the brakes off them. Green Bay's going to beat the brakes off them. Minnesota, I'm still not sold on, but they're better.
I hear you, but John, Ryan Poles became the GM in 22. This is his 3rd season. You can't put every bad decision by the Bears organization on Ryan Poles.
No, but I can put. I'm like you're surrounding. First of all, you say you want to build around Justin Fields. You didn't have to say that.
No, I guess not. But you get it. There's politics in this league, man. There's semantics. There's bullshit. You got to keep the value of the player high. You got to keep the locker room intact until you get to where you want to
And
be. I
even
mean, come on.
and
There's a lot
even
more that
and
goes into
even
that.
and even Caleb Williams, you haven't surrounded him with the ecosystem for long-term success. So it starts with that. If I have a young quarterback, I'm surrounding him with not Matt Eberflus. I don't know. Before it was Luke Getsy, which was a joke. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Oh, John, you're cracking me up this morning, my man. You're in
Shane,
rare form. I
Shane,
like.
Shane Waldron is their offensive coordinator. I'm sure he's a fine guy. He's got, he had a cup of coffee with McVay, so I'm sure he's well. He was the offensive coordinator in Seattle. So I'm sure he's got a better feel for it than what they've had there before with the Luke Getzys of the world and people like that. But and they're having some early success, but I would temper the history of that organization. And you're right, Ryan Poles is not responsible for that. But yeah, I'm not giving somebody credit for going back to back number 1 overall pick. Go fuck that
I'll
guy.
give Ryan Poles a little
This
bit
ain't-
of credit.
This ain't the NBA. This ain't the NBA. You don't have to tank in the NFL. And when you do tank it, you usually screw it up because, Bryce Young's of the world. It ain't easy to develop quarterbacks. And hopefully they do develop Caleb Williams. If any city deserves a quarterback, it's Chicago. But I wouldn't go overboard.
Yeah, I'm not ready to either. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. One more super chat. We'll get to our break and then close out the show on the other side. Suo Blaze checks in again, follows up on his $10 Devin White super. Suo, you might set John off the edge this morning, man. He said,
Okay.
just because Vic made the decision doesn't mean it was the right decision. Vic has
Well-
already made bad decisions in 7 weeks.
Is this Suo? Suo. It's not Sua. I'm thinking Suo Peta. Dude, how do you explain the 31 other teams? Free, you don't even have to give us a super chat, just regular chat. How do you explain the 31 other teams?
It's true.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Nobody wants them. I'm sure he'll get another chance at some point. I'm sure somebody will get injured. And you'll get an opportunity to see it, maybe. And maybe that'll put it to rest for you. But Vic doesn't make. I've criticized Vic a lot. I criticized him for taking so long with Cooper DeJean. I criticized him for the scheme as a whole. He's not the only one. All you had to do was give Devin White $4 million and he would have went somewhere else. Nobody wanted him in the spring. He's now free and clear. He can sign with anybody at any time. Again, I do expect him to land somewhere as injuries pile up around the league. So I'm not saying he's completely done. But nobody was jumping up and saying, oh, the Eagles finally let Devin White go. Let's go out and sign him. There's 31 other teams, not just the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's a fair point there from Johnny Mac. Let's get to our commercial break. Great stuff from everybody. Can we get the 150 likes in the chat, everybody? We have 141. You guys have been killing it today. We were slacking a little bit on Birds 365, so we picked that up today. Let's get the 150 here on the show. We got about 25 minutes left to play. Suo follows up. Let's see. Because his mentals were not right, he said it himself, we should have gave him a chance.
He started I believe at one time, he didn't get the first. He got a big time chance. And by the way, if he would have embraced special teams, he might still be here. But if you're going to be a backup linebacker, you got to play special teams. Unfortunately for Devin, he's been a star at LSU, obviously, didn't play special teams. He was drafted number 5 overall, didn't play special teams. If you're a backup linebacker, you have to play special teams. not comfortable with it. It's ironic because he is a good athlete. That's the best part of his traits that he has left. He's not the most instinctive player. Freelances way too much. Not a special teams player. So you're either going to be a starter or you're out. And he's out. I don't know. Maybe somebody gets hurt and they bring him back because he is a good guy and he handled things professionally. And maybe you'll get a chance to see him play. And then I don't expect the apology, but you'll see.
John, real quick, before we get to the break, your thoughts on the Reddick stuff. He signed Drew Rosenhaus, the big super agent.
Hopefully Drew talks some sense in the
I'm sure he will, but Drew will also get the deal done. That's one of the things that Drew will do. We talked about Detroit earlier. Some people's mentioning it in the chat. They lost Aiden Hutchinson, and they might feel like they have a chance. I wonder if they'd make a move. It was reported that
they should feel like they have a chance because they're the best team in football with Aiden Hutchinson. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
They definitely have a chance.
Yeah.
Now,
I wonder if they'll make a move for him and make a trade for him.
Boy, I don't know. They signed somebody today of Cincinnati's practice squad, I think. That's it. That's a big injury. You can't replace Aiden Hutchinson, but I get why people are making that connection. Play a little bit of a different scheme, that they need more of a traditional defensive end like Hutchinson versus what Hassan is. But yeah, Hassan, a lot of people don't want to get involved with that, I imagine. And, I don't think Detroit's looking to pay an edge rusher $20+ million or whatever Drew's going to try to get for him. But I get why people are going that direction. I think they're going to wait and see how they persevere. And it'll start this week. If they show up, they're playing Minnesota this week. I forget where the game is. If they play well in that game, I think they're going to be fine. If they start having some issues, maybe they start thinking about things. But I'm not sure if he's a fit for that scheme.
Yeah, doesn't play the run well, so we'll see what ends up happening there. In other news in the NFL world, Jerry Jones is melting down on his weekly radio interview. So all the Eagles have to do is handle some business and keep Nick Serianni on the rails. And the team is going to win. Is going to at least get close to winning the NFC, depending on how Washington pans out. But Dallas has fallen apart at the seams. So we'll get to our commercial break. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. Did we get up to 150 yet? We got 150, 152 we're up to. Appreciate all of you guys for getting us to 150 likes. If you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Tuesday edition, recapping the final touches here on Week 6. The Eagles got the win versus the Browns and getting ready for our first NFC East showdown of the year. John, taking on the lowly New York Giants. I don't think they're going to be much of a threat, although they played a little bit better football in the last couple of weeks.
Hey, real quick before you get into that, Drew's already working, so
I figured
Jets have granted Hassan Reddick permission to seek a trade.
So it's just not going to work out in there in New York. It doesn't seem.
Doesn't look so. But now people are going to, hey, are the Eagles going to pick him up?
I thought there was a rule that came out that we can't trade for him. He'd have to go cut, right?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously we'll see pretty quickly if Detroit's interested. So that should be interesting. But yeah, the Eagles can't reacquire him by league rule. I forget who dug that. I think it was Albert Breer who dug that up first.
Yeah, that was a good job by him. So probably can't trade for him. We'll see what ends up happening with him. I think Detroit could be a decent spot if they feel like they need another player. I don't know. He doesn't really fit there at least I don't think he does, but we'll see what ends up happening there. John, I have a general question about this Eagles team before we close out the show today. Got 15 minutes. Appreciate all the support today. You guys have been fantastic in the chat as always. Do you see cracks in the foundation of this football team, John, that would prevent them from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, well, I don't think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So, yeah, that would say cracks. Yeah,
I mean, we've been covering the game for a long time, though, and different teams, fizzle out for certain reasons.
Well, yeah, injuries aside, I mean, I think the best teams in football are Kansas City, Baltimore, some of the similar. Detroit, I mentioned, would be the best. San Francisco, even though they've had some issues, if they get healthy. I don't know what to believe about Minnesota. I think, but those are the teams I look at right away and say, all right, they're legit. I don't look at the Eagles in that same way. I think they're overrated by most, certainly locally from a talent perspective. They have all the nonsense, self-inflicted nonsense. I've hated the setup from day one.
Yeah. Well, what changed then from 22 to now? This is where I point to some of Howie Roseman's moves, but how were they such a bona fide Super Bowl contender in that year, nearly coming, within inches of winning the football game over Goliath and Mahomes and Reed? And then now here we are 2 years later, and you're telling me you don't even think they're close to the Super Bowl contenders of the NFC.
Well, I think they're a playoff team, so if things hit right, but you're asking me,
Yeah.
all right, who's like a bunch of things got to go right for the Eagles, and
Yeah, and
I'm
the
trying to
context
look.
should never be left out in the NFL. I
Yeah,
mean, injuries, all sorts of shit. I
yeah.
get that too.
Houston, I think, is ahead as well. I should have mentioned them.
Yeah, they're good.
Packers, I think, are ahead. I should have mentioned
What?
them.
The Packers already?
Yeah. Yeah, the Packers are going to keep. The Packers are good. I'm surprised the Eagles beat them. Um, and then I think the Eagles are in the next mix of teams, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. So if you're in the dance, who knows what happens on a particular week. But if you look at them and say that's legitimate Super Bowl contender, that's one of the I don't look at them that way. They're very it's a work in progress defensively, to say the least. They're very top heavy roster wise. I don't think their depth is very good. So, I think people get enamored. Same thing with the dream team. People get enamored with big names, and they have a bunch of big names on offense. And there's some legitimate superstars like AJ Brown and Lane Johnson, and there's some not legitimate superstars who are just really good players who people think are superstars. And there's a difference. But they're a good team. They're not a great team. That's my take on the Eagles.
We'll see what they're able to do late in the year. I do think there are some issues but look, I'd rather fix them early, right? I mean, last year
I'd rather get better late than early.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
But I'm talking about right now, a snapshot right now. They're not a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Can they grow?
What do you think the biggest problems are plaguing this organization then right now that make you say
Well,
that?
the setup, number one, that's Jeffrey Lurie's fault. Nobody else's. Starts right at the top. He set this thing up, and it was a disaster waiting to happen, and it's turning into that disaster. But beyond the off the field stuff, the on the field, the quarterback has regressed. Sorry for all the delicate people out there. The quarterback has regressed. You overrate the running back to a ludicrous degree, as you saw over the weekend. Now you've had significant injury issues already. You saw Lane Johnson, what he means. You've seen it for years. Now you're going to see without Jordan Mailata for a couple weeks. They're banged up at tight end. The depth is not great, even though Grant showed up. Good for him. You saw him in space a little bit, but he's not a good blocker, as James Carver pointed out, to say the least. That's going to affect things. Bunch of domino effects. They're very good on offense, but as you've seen, very clunky unless everything is perfect. And few times are things going to be perfect. And then defensively, there's a whole host of issues. I mean, maybe Quinyon Mitchell turns into one of the best cornerbacks in football by the end of the year. A lot of good things. Maybe Cooper DeJean keeps getting better and better. Maybe Jeremiah Trotter Jr. comes in and fixes the linebacker situation. Maybe Bryce Huff figures it out. Maybe the Eagles get the NFL to change the rules and get Hassan Reddick back. I don't know. All these things. Whatever. They got plenty of room to grow on defense, but I don't think anybody's looking at that defense right now and saying, whoa, that's a Super Bowl defense. Is there upside? Sure. But I think if you're being honest, this is not a Super Bowl team right now. I find it hard to believe anybody believe it would be a Super Bowl team right now.
Yeah, I think they have the potential to get there. They haven't showed it right now, though. I mean,
no, that hadn't even been close right now. They're not even the best team in the division right now. That's Washington. Do I think they're going to be the best team in the? Yes, eventually. They will outlast Washington. They're certainly better than the Giants.
Pretty good, man. Washington looks pretty good. That's
Yeah, I
another
would.
team. That's another team that falls into they've sucked for so long that they're finally good.
They're certainly better. They're certainly better than Dallas. We'll see with Dallas if Micah gets back and DeMarcus Lawrence gets back. But right now it doesn't look good with the Cowboys. The Giants are just an abject disaster. It's similar to this week with Cleveland, but they're still an NFL team. They still got Brian Burns out there. They still got Dexter Lawrence. You see individual plays and you go, oh, Malik Neighbors is coming back. But that would be a big disappointment if they can't beat the New York Giants. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 4-point game again. I'll tell you that. And if it's a 4-point game, anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Couple minutes left here on Birds 365. Let's get to one more super chat. I think we got a couple more. Brian Fleming checks in. Spicy J-Mac throwing flames going into interview with Fangio today. I'm so excited. Is that who's set to speak today, John? Vic Fangio?
Yeah, it's coordinator day. So it'll be Vic, it'll be Kellen Moore, it'll be Michael Clay having to talk about another bad special teams play, which has been a trend, by the way. In this one, great individual play. I'm sure we'll give Myles Garrett credit, but yeah, not good.
What are you going to ask? What's on your mind? What do you want to hear from? I think Vic today is probably Kellen is just like boring. Like he's
Kellen. Well, Kellen's the one the most. I mean, Vic's group played well, so obviously there's going to be a lot of Cooper talk. I'll probably bring up N'Kobe as the negative person.
Yeah, do it.
Not playing well. And Kellen though is because of what big and by the way, it's not even legitimate because like a lot of people when Nick Serianni brought up the 3rd and 1, a lot of people went to the assumption that he's taking the play calling away from Kellen Moore. That he was protecting Jalen Hurts. He wasn't even protecting Kellen Moore, but he's going to get 3rd and 1 questions because of Nick's handling of it. And he's the more interesting part of it, but he's such a politician. He's not going to say anything.
Yeah.
So.
Jalen's checking a lot of plays. I think it's
too many,
yeah.
Too many. I'm sure Kellen believes that. He's not going to say that, but too many.
And that's got to be a hard line to walk as a coordinator where it's like you don't
got to be a really hard line. That was his whole freaking issue last year. Didn't have the autonomy. Now they give him the autonomy. Now you have problems with he's taking too much autonomy. Just run the damn play.
If it were Johnny Mack, what would you do about that?
I'd say run the damn play.
Run the effing play, Jalen. Well,
you have to realize in the modern game, generally, you basically have 2 options. So they build everything up because everything has become dumbed down because it's the collegeization of professional football. So basically, you go to the line of scrimmage with 2 options: run play, pass play. You kill from one to the other. But Jalen seems to be going completely off script at times and going to different looks, zero blitz. And generally it's just deep shots, which, tone it down a little bit, I would say.
Good Johnny Mac. One more super chat on the way out here. We got 5 minutes left to go. Appreciate everybody on the show today. Suo Blaze has been a big one today. Suo, thanks for all your support, even when Johnny Mac rips you to shreds.
I didn't rip anybody.
John, you ripped.
Well, was that the Devin
shredder?
The Devin White? Look, I mean, there's people because he was the number 5. Oh, we're still talking about Devin White. Regrets the situation. He doesn't regret the situation. Yeah, I mean, N'Kobe's legitimate. Devin's out the door. They're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, they're not talking about it. Well, here's my question for Vic. Did Nick Serianni call a defensive play?
Yeah, he's definitely going to get asked that. And Vic's probably going to have no idea what what the
Yeah, you're like,
what
what?
we're talking about.
No, I sit up in the booth. I call the plays from the top.
Yeah, he's gonna have no idea what we're talking about. No, he'll have a better answer than that. I'm part facetious, but yeah, he's not calling offensive plays. What Nick is talking about there is he's got certain demands he has of the defensive coordinator. He used to talk about this when, Jonathan Gannon was here. The reason why the Eagles played this scheme is because Nick Serianni thought it was the most difficult to deal with as an offensive mind. And he's not the only one. Sean McVay, really more so than anybody else, drives the train. A bunch of those guys, Kyle Shanahan said it, Kevin O'Connell said it. That has always been the most difficult scheme for them to deal with. However, they figured it out. So life does not exist in a stasis, similar to because you're the number 5 overall pick doesn't mean you stay the number 5 overall pick for the rest of your life.
No
Either
doubt.
perform or you don't.
Last super chat, Brian says, boy, that all 22 looks tragic for Nakobe Dean. He looks comically bad. How does Trot not get on the field like this is Nate Jerry territory? Nate Gary.
Poor Nate Gary, man. I always say Nate Gary played a full season with a sports hernia, and that's why Jim Swartz had so much respect for him, and Ken Flajoel, the linebackers coach at the time, had so much respect for him. But fans don't care, man. If you don't play well, they don't care about what you're dealing with. Yeah, Nakobe's not playing well. I mean, he's not. And if he continues to play like that, again, a lot of it depends on the development behind the scenes. And if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Ben Van Sumeren, if the coaches feel they're ready, at some point they're going to have to address the situation.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Your final thoughts on the show today as we wrap up this Tuesday edition of Birds 365. We'll probably start to scope in for the rest of the week on this Giants game coming up. First NFC East.
Hopefully, we'll see if Nick does something. I know he's got his WIP spot this morning, so maybe he said something.
Oh, is he on there this morning?
Maybe, I think, yeah. Today's Tuesday, yeah. Usually it's on Tuesday. Maybe he said something stupid there. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see when we get off the air.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to talk about football. Hopefully. We'll see.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. 175 likes. Thank you guys for that big like show today for Birds 365. We were slacking a little bit, so thank you for stepping up, giving us some likes on the show today, and then all of our super chats. Thanks, everybody, for the super chats. Brian Suo, Brian Fleming, Brian Pumper, Dank Bird Gang, Alexander Harris, James Carver, as always, Martine, and Brian Garner. Thanks, all you guys. A lot of Brians. Brian Pumper, Brian Fleming, Brian Garner. We got Brian's out the ass on Birds 365. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Johnny Mac, good show, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365, right, brother?
All right, sounds good. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, everybody. Catch you tomorrow on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.